here. I have no idea. Here we go. We're live. Let's see. In-
On my screen, it says streaming started.
yes, here we go. Now we're live. All right. We're just perfectly on time. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Depends when you're looking. When you're watching this live Facebook, thank you for joining us. My name is Levi, and we have an incredible guest today, Derek Jones. Hi, Derek. Welcome.
What's up,
Let
Levy? Thanks for
I'm
having me.
good. Absolutely. Let me just read the intro. Derek Jones is Vice President of Sales and Partnership at Hospitable. Derek's journey with Hospitable began in 2021 as a customer. After adopting Hospitable, he scaled his portfolio from two properties to more than 15 and began co-hosting for other owners. Since 2016, hosts have used Hospitable to answer 90% of guest messages with AI-powered automated messaging, automate their team notification so they never miss a clean, manage guest access with the smart locks, and avoid double booking with synchronized calendar across booking channels. Absolutely incredible. Already back in 2016, you guys had AI. Derek, welcome again, and give me 2 minutes elevator pitch about you, sir.
Well, thank you for the intro. Thanks for having me. Sounds great when you get to write your own intro too,
Right?
doesn't it? That sounds great. That's it. The Levy gave the story. I've had a W-2 job my entire career. About 10 years ago, I wised up and saw how much of my paycheck was going to pay taxes. One year, I asked my CPA, "How the heck can I, can you over your career continue to make more money, but it seems like when tax time comes around, you owe so much in taxes?" And he shared some of the tips that other people were doing with real estate and then particularly short and midterm rentals. And so 10 years ago, I got the bug, bought the first rental property on accident, like most people. Learned about the advantages for taxes of owning real estate and managing short and midterm rentals. And then every year it was a goal to acquire a property or two in order to reduce my W-2 income for the job that I love. And then about 5 years ago, I became a customer of Hospitable. I actually remember the day that I signed up. I had a guest get locked out of their property, and it was about $3,200 reservation. And because they could not get in, Airbnb gave them a full refund. And you know what? They should have. They couldn't get in for 2 hours while I was sleeping.
Mhm.
And that I was like, there's got to be a better way. Someone can help me with this. So I found Hospitable. So I became a customer. And today I lead our sales, partnership, onboarding, and our customer success team. So I'm talking to dozens of operators every day. And so my goal here today is to try to bring some of the tips of what we're seeing the best and some of those who are growing the fastest in this space.
Incredible story. You know what? It's also started with me the same way. One day I woke up. I need to do this for the next 30 years. I'm still W2 though. I'm taking slowly. I also started to buy one property at the time, but then in the last 5 years, I put brakes on it. So still working, but I'm almost there. Incredible. Okay, let me ask you. Many hosts rely solely on Airbnb. This is what I did back in the days. What are some other channels hosts should consider, and why should they consider listing on more than one channel?
Sure. Yeah, I think depending on where you're at in your journey, starting on Airbnb is totally reasonable. That's where most people start. They have very broad distribution. But then soon you realize, hey, they're not the only game in town, and you wonder if there should be other channels. So just for terminology, most people know too, we call these channels. That's like Airbnb, Vrbo, or Booking.com, or we also refer to them as OTAs, online travel agencies. So I might interchange a few of those terms. Clearly being on Airbnb, okay, but Vrbo, Booking.com, I believe, if especially if you are in the United States or North America, those are channels that you should be on. If you're in Europe, Booking.com is also very popular. Also, those are the three that I think drive. We know this today. We see it inside of our own software, Hospitable. That drives over 95% of all bookings and revenue for most operators. Now, there is a long tail of channels, 20, 30, 40 others that are nice to have when you present to maybe you're going to co-host for somebody and they say, hey, how are you going to help me get distributed? There's sort of a lot of others that are out there, but we don't see that they really drive significant volumes of bookings or revenue. They're a little bit more of a sales pitch, okay? That when you are going to try to, let's say, co-host or do like, when you're trying to co-host someone else's property. So those three. Now, Google Vacation Rentals has also really stepped up recently. We're seeing at Hospitable that has started to be, about 17 or 18% of bookings that come through our direct channel. So it's creeping up there. Obviously, if we take a step back, a lot has changed with AI recently. When you go type into Google and you're searching for something, now they have the search generated experience, they call it SGE. You used to get all these listing results. Now the answer is it's already there. You don't even need to click into the website, right? With that change, Google launched Google Travel, and they have their vacation rentals. So you're listed right next to hotels, bed and breakfast, those types of things. And Hospitable, and with inside of our platform, we bring in your listing from Airbnb, but then we auto post you out to Google Vacation Rentals as well. But any host can do this yourself. You don't have you can do it automatically with us. But so now it's really allowing you to be there and compete where people might have been looking for a hotel, and but then all of a sudden you're listed right next to if you're right next to
Marriott.
what Marriott, exactly, a
Right.
room, and your bed and breakfast or your short-term rental will be there. So check that out as well. Those are the four that we see drive significant volume. And if you're on those channels, then you have a very, very good chance. Every market is a little bit different. We see some markets get 40-50% of their bookings through Vrbo or booking.com and some others. So the key thing you want to do there to understand if you should is just go to booking.com, go to Vrbo. Okay, type in your zip code, put in the number of bedrooms and bath, put in the duration if you're midterm or short term, see how many listings are there. Adjust the calendar in the future, see if there's a little X through the calendar numbers, then you know they actually have future bookings, and just start small. I think a lot of people can get really, really paralyzed thinking there are 50 channels. If you're on Airbnb today, just do one additional channel in the next 60 days, then do the next one. Otherwise, if you try to think that you need to be on all of them, it usually paralyzes you. And the difference, what we see in operators who significantly grow, is they make small incremental improvements to their business instead of doing these big bang changes and going and getting on 20 different channels in one weekend. Just make a goal to get one more channel.
Understood. Wow. Okay. For the Google Travel, do I need to have my own website, or I can use the listings on Airbnb?
So you need a direct booking website. They do not process they do not process the booking. They will, when you click. So it just takes you right over to the direct booking website. I think you can also list your short-term rental there as well, but like you can list your Airbnb or Vrbo channel. But why would you do that? You're going to take them, to a channel when they found you directly, and you can actually mark up your rates, right, when you do direct bookings, and you can maybe make an extra 7, 8, 9, 10% margin if they book direct. So it's an advantage. It's not against any of the OTA's terms of service. Someone found you on a local search result, why not link to your direct booking? So I think, to answer your question, you can do
Yeah.
either or, but I
Mhm.
think there's no reason why you do not want to list your direct booking website there.
Understood. Um, let's talk about communication. You said your guest tried to reach out to you for 2 hours while you were sleeping. Hopefully, you had good dreams there. With Airbnb limiting direct communication, how can hosts still effectively collect guest emails for marketing and direct booking relationship?
Yeah, it's a great question. So just to clarify for those who may not be aware, so about a year ago, Airbnb, uh, if you are a guest on Airbnb, you have to sign up with your personal email address. That personal email address used to be exposed to the host, so you could collect it in addition to the phone number for that person. And about a year ago, they stopped providing the email address. Now, why did they do that? It's a very reasonable business decision for them. They don't want you to grab the email address to then, now they were only providing the email address once the booking was confirmed, but it's not in their best interest from a business model perspective to give the personal email address, because then you might communicate with that guest for a follow-up booking after the fact. Okay, so obviously we are not ever advocating to violate one of the channels or OTA's terms of service. However, your guest might want to rebook with you, and oftentimes it's their intent to maybe book direct, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not against the terms of service if the guest is wanting to contact you off the platform and following up, right? So one of the things that we do in Hospitable, if a guest types in their email address anywhere in the communication thread, we automatically recognize that it is an email and we'll store it to that guest profile. Now, we also have a what's called a short code, which detects if we have the email address, and if we don't, then we will ask and send a specific question. I think I have tested out so many ways to get the email address from someone, and I have found one tip and trick that gets 80% of guests to give their email. It is sending a message 3 minutes after the booking is confirmed. Not 1 minute, not 2 minutes, but
Wow.
3 minutes after. What I see often is people will ask for the email address, knowing that from Airbnb. Now, Vrbo is a little different story. They do give you email addresses. Booking also gives, but Airbnb, which is driving most reservations, does not. Okay, so if you want the email address from someone who's at Airbnb, you got to ask for it. I used to ask for email address, let's say on the day of the checkout or after the person had checked out, but they're sort of done. They already visited your property, they're back home. What I find is when you send a separate discrete message 3 minutes after the booking is confirmed, you say something like, I'm actually looking at my message right now, like my
Mm-hmm.
template. You say, hey, just want to make sure we have the best email address on file. We're going to continue communicating through and we use a little short code for the channel, Airbnb booking or whatever, so it says the right thing. But just in case we need it, and in case you want us to send you like a separate receipt, we would like to have your email address on file. Okay, and usually guests feel obligated that prior to showing up, they know they need to do certain things. It almost feels like they need to comply with that versus it's a nice to have, which if it's on the day of their checkout or after, I'll get less than maybe 10% of email addresses collected from guests if you ask the day of or after. So 3 minutes after, individual message, send it out. If you're using Hospitable, we have a short code. The trigger is that if there's no email address on the reservation, you can send that message out. 80% success rate 3 minutes after the booking is confirmed.
Wow, amazing. And the message is being sent automatically after 3 minutes by AI?
Yeah, so yes, correct. So our messaging system detects if we have an email address. If we don't, we can write the email or we can have AI construct that email and request it. But usually just a template is okay for this because it's not an advanced message. We don't need a ton of AI here. We can just simply have a template that has some merged fields like hi, first name, right, of the guest we'd like to grab your email address for these purposes. Usually a template is just fine in this scenario.
Got it. Thank you. Very nice feature. I love it. What are the keys? Sorry, what are the key steps in setting up automated direct booking funnel? And how can this benefit host in terms of repeat booking and cost savings?
Right, great. Well, like most hosts, you start listing on, let's say, Airbnb, you might add some channels, but it doesn't take long until a guest says, hey, we love to stay here. Can we find your website, or do you have a social media channel or something that we can like communicate with you if we were to decide to return to this area in the future, right? That happens to all of us. Um, and so the thing that I want to first say is that most people really focus on their website being perfect. I mean, getting like the absolute perfect website, and you got to go
Guilty.
spend all this money and you got to do all these things. It's more and most important to have a strategy for getting direct bookings. Even if you have a website, I'll give a grade letter, a C minus or a C
Mm,
visually looking website, as long as it functions, it can take a payment method. Most guests don't really care that it doesn't look like officially like a Marriott page, as long as it looks credible. Okay. So I would say that if you're someone who's on the fence, like whether it's using Hospitable, you can press a button and create your website from the information we have inside of Hospitable. It's 2 clicks. Okay. Or there are plenty of other great short-term rental, mid-term rental website creators out there, or other even competitors to Hospitable do this. Don't wait to get it perfect. Just get a website up and available. The strategy component is really important. I think one overlooked process, or one overlooked tactic, is, especially, let's say if you own two properties in a local area, let's say two or more, which I had now are managing 15. Most of my direct bookings are not coming from repeat guests, although I do get some repeat guests. Okay. I have a very specific message that sends to the guest when they've booked, asking some information about why they booked the trip. So this is after the booking has been confirmed, after I've sent the email address or requested the email. Just say, hey, just so I can prepare and I can provide you any local recommendations while you're here. What's the reason that you travel? Now, sometimes they already give you this information when they request a book, right? Or they do an inquiry. So I'm looking at that. My team's looking at that message. And if they say that they're coming for a soccer tournament, a baseball game, a wedding, and I have 3 other properties that are available, I have what I call a custom code inside of Hospitable. It's just a template, and it's ready to go, so I don't have to think about it. I just press the button. It says, hey, it looks like you're coming with a larger group. I can offer you 10% off, a rebate back on your booking, and anyone who books, I can give them 10% off our public rate. Let me know if anyone else in the party is interested, and then you have their email address, you have your direct booking website. You're not taking that guest off the channel, right? So it's not a violation of the terms of service of any of the OTAs. They're just saying, and that is the way that I crush it with. Well, you get email addresses. That's the first part of the funnel. Then you need to have a strategy to make sure that the guests who are showing up, they've already booked with you, so there's some trust there, right? They have an incentive, and someone will have an incentive to book with you if you provide a discount. Then on the back end for repeat guests, there are some very simple things. Some of the tactics that I see, we've got over 100 customers last year who booked over $100,000 in direct bookings. And some of the things that they're typically doing is like sending an email after at least a 4 or a 5-star review has been left, because they had a good experience. You don't want to
Yep.
send someone, hey, come book with me direct, if they left you a 1-star or 2-star review. And then sending an email or a message to that person 10 months after. I think you had, I think, StayFi on. This is something that
Mm-hmm.
they
Yep.
do as well. Whether you're doing it through your own email system or a system like StayFi, you want to catch that person during the window in which they're probably researching their next vacation the following year. We typically find that's 10 months after the original date that they booked, not the start of the reservation, but the date that they booked, because typically people are going to be looking, 2, 3, 4 weeks out. That's called the lead time, right? So you want to do it 4 to 6 weeks prior to that initial lead time of the booking.
Understood. In my case, when I used to rent my 1-bedroom room downstairs, I had several people coming back over and over and over again through Airbnb. Actually, I never thought back then to set up like a direct booking or create a follow up, or give them some incentives to come back. They just came back, I guess, because of the work. Got you. Thank you very much.
I missed one thing on that one, just to make sure, because I think
Please.
there's a emails can people almost don't check email these days, right? If it's not in a
Mhm.
text, it almost blends in. So one other tactic that I'm seeing be hugely successful is just create a very simple Instagram page for your property. So if you have a cabin, create an Instagram page for your cabin, and I put up a sheet of paper, inside my listing. It's got a QR code and says, hey, while you're here, if you post a post and tag our listing, we'll give you 10% off of your next booking. And
Mhm.
so the Instagram page that I have for my listings, when that person then shares that posting, it goes out to all their friends, and they say, hey, we had a great time. My listings are in Roswell, Georgia. Say, hey, we had a great time. Their friends see it. It's not the number one source of my direct bookings, but we definitely get a handful
Mhm.
from those sources, because like, oh, hey, you took the kids last year to this area. I remember you posted on social media, like, and they'll ask them and they say, oh yeah, that's cool. So social media is also very big. Start small and simple. You can create, it's a Instagram business account. That's what you want to create. Make it very simple. You don't have to put all the highlights. Start simple. Just do 10. You really need 9 pictures to start on the 3x3 grid on the Instagram page. Usually you want to make those pictures of like things to do in the area, or local events. Pick the biggest sort of uh, recurring annual events every year. People don't really care about the listing. They
Mhm.
can really care about the things to do. And that's why when they share it and their friends see it on Instagram, they're going to click, they're going to come to your Instagram profile and be like, hey, that's a cool place for the family. Or, they've got sports events, they've got all this great stuff for us. So social media also is another tactic that should be included in your direct booking funnel.
Understood. Maybe you can share your Instagram handle later to see how it looks, what it's supposed to be. Okay, we are 20 minutes into the conversation. I am taking so many notes. I appreciate that, Derek. Thank you very much. Next question. Beyond dynamic pricing software, what are some of the ways that hosts can use pricing to increase revenue?
Sure. So I'll take the question and I'll maybe kind of do a little bit of a U-turn on it because I think there is an area that most operators go wrong here. First of all, did you know, and this comes from Price Labs, the more you mess with the customization and configuration of your pricing, the worse that your revenue is. The more you optimize it. This is coming directly from hearing from Price Labs. Okay. You've
Mhm.
actually can see, so for those of you who don't know, Price Labs is a dynamic pricing tool that you can plug into your listing that changes your rates based on
Correct.
seasonality and local events and things like that. But what happens is people get in and they make so many changes and they make a science project out of something that doesn't need to be. You end up having so many restrictions, right? And you actually have seen a little bit of an inverse. They've made some changes to their product in the last few months that made it more simple, more default configurations. I personally believe, based on some of their observations in the data. Okay. So, what I see is the biggest overlooked aspect of pricing, and I'll say there's sort of a global term of pricing, and within pricing, there are what are called rule sets. Rule sets. This is also what Airbnb calls them, right? They call them rule sets. I think the rule sets is what most people get wrong when they think about pricing. They think about fluctuation of pricing. Rule sets are things like I personally don't advocate for any host to have a 2-day minimum, right? Like this
Mm.
would be an example of a rule set. Every host, now we're talking to mid and short term operators here, right? So like rule sets are things like minimum stay. They're like, what do you do for gaps when you have gaps in between stays? What kind of discounts do you give for multiple weeks? These are rule set type of changes. But let's just take like the short term type of operator. By the way, most of my best mid and long term rentals have always come from short term guests. They were looking in the area for a new home. They were looking to relocate. They wanted to stay somewhere a week, and that ended up becoming a long-term guest. So I look at optimizing one of my biggest funnels as short-term to get midterm rentals. So like a few years ago, I started out only offering two night minimums, and then I would wonder like, my gosh, like why am I not getting booked as much? And I would have these like gaps during the week that were very hard to fill. I just raised my minimum rate up very high. So if someone does book one night, is totally worth it. And then I give a 2-day discount, right? That ends up being the same
Mm.
price as they would have booked. But if someone's willing to pay a really strong rate for a Tuesday evening because the market is, or I have really good reviews, I'm going to let them do it. Your calendar needs to be available if that's what you're looking for. Now, if you're a midterm operator, you're you're a totally different story. You want your calendar to be open, right? So getting the right length of stay discount is really important. I see so many midterm operators just miss the fact that they haven't in Airbnb or Vrbo or Booking.com. They haven't gone in and set that, hey, if you're staying 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, that you get a 20, 40, 50% discount, whatever you're willing to discount to. I will even go a little bit less than what I'm usually, because I want the inquiry, right? I want the person,
Mhm.
if you're not appealing from a listing, you don't show up in search because you have the calendar days available and the rate is so high. Like I like to have a conversation with people, especially since I have multiple rentals in the area, and I'll ask them straight up once they send a message. Okay, I know that you said this price isn't in your budget. What is your budget? We'll take a look across all of our availability and our inventory. We'll make the best recommendation to you, right? So those are some tips and tactics. Rule sets is the key here. Go inside of Airbnb, click on your calendar. On the right hand side, you see all these rule sets pop up. They made a change to the user interface about a year ago too, so it's not as easy to find, or on any of the channels that you're looking. I think now Price Labs, Wheelhouse, the all Beyond, they
Beyond.
also have
Uh-huh.
some rule sets in there. but I would make sure that you optimize those before you even start doing a bunch of fluctuation and occupancy-based pricing or some of their more advanced tactics.
Mhm. I th- Thank you for that. I never knew about rule sets. Now I know. I just need to play around with them. Also, I believe Hospitable have an option in order to increase revenue if guests want to check in early or check out late. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, we call these ECI and LCO rules, so early check-in and late checkout rules. So every host should set a standard, okay?
Mhm.
10% minimum of your guests should be buying either an early check-in or a late checkout. That's the minimum. Right now for my properties, it's about 18%. I charge a flat fee, $35 to check in early, up to 2 hours, right? So what I do in Hospitable, we have again what's called a smart code, which is just a rule for a message to be sent out that's not a specific day or time. It means a condition needs to be met. So
Mhm.
let's say I have someone who's checking in on Friday, but I have Thursday night open. So that's a prompt. Like no, the place has already been cleaned. It's not going to cost me anything. So I actually detect in Hospitable, the smart code says, look, there's not a booking the night before. So I set a rule 5 days before because people who are traveling, they need some time to prepare.
Mhm.
I'll send them a message to say, hey, if you have travel flexibility, you can come a day early and I'll give you an incredible rate. I don't even tell them what the rate is there because I want a communication to go back and forth. If you just tell them the price, then they're just like, oh, that fits or not. I want them to be interested to see how low the price might be. So I don't even tell them the actual price at that moment. I say, look, I've got two options. You could come in a day early or 2 days early, or you could do an early check-in and I'll give you some great recommendations on the area, and I can do the same thing for the checkout. If someone's checking out on a Sunday, what cleaner likes to clean on a Sunday anyways? They would rather clean on a Monday, okay? Okay, and but the key is you got to send the message in enough time. If you send it at 8 o'clock at night and checkouts tomorrow at 11 a.m., they've already made their mind to sort of leave. So you got to get the timing right, and you have to make sure that you can support the early check-in or late checkout. So I'll do the same on the back end. Say, basically, I'll even ask sometimes people check in on a Friday. I'll ask them a couple hours after they check in, hey, just letting you know, you just got checked in, but we're looking at Sunday, and if you have a great time here this weekend, we're willing to extend your stay for a super cheap rate. Let us know if you're
Mhm.
interested.
Beautiful. Amazing strategy. I like how you negotiate. I'm reading book right now. It says start with no. So you don't even say the price. You're like, tell me no first and then let's talk.
That's
I
right.
love it. Thank you. Okay, next question. We have four more to go. How important is guest screening and what are some best practices for ensuring a safe and positive experience for both hosts and guests?
Sure. Well, I think the thing that everyone should know is on the main channels, Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com, you should assume that they have done some level of screening, but it's not great screening. And
Mm.
um, I even saw a post in an email this morning of someone who stayed in I won't say the channel name, but just say they stayed with a completely fake profile and a
Mhm.
fake name, and they were able to get through and book with no problem. Um, this is a scary thing, especially if you're co-hosting someone else's property, right? That can be a damage to the relationship. So um, screening is important. I separate screening into two pieces. Every inquiry or booking request that I have, whether I accept instant book or not, I ask 4 or 5 questions of every guest who's coming through. Okay, and I'd be
Mhm.
happy to share these with your group as well.
Please.
I'm sort of reading off the top of my head here, but I say, hey, what's the reason for your visit to the area? Can you please confirm the uh, the ages of the guests in the reservation and their relationship to you? Can you also confirm that you've reviewed the house rules? And I even include those in the message, a direct link, so there's no question, because Airbnb likes to side with guests all the time,
Mhm.
and they'll say, "Oh, I didn't see the house rules," right? And then I also another important thing, I always say, please acknowledge that the owner of this property lives next door and strictly enforces the rules of this house. Now, I don't live next door to any of these properties, but I love it when I see someone send an inquiry and they see me ask these 5 questions and then I see the inquiry retracted. I love it. I know that I just avoided a situation or someone was throwing a party. It was just someone who just didn't want to answer those questions. Like, I'm okay with that. So I think there's like a self vetting type of thing. And then there's like a professional vetting. Like inside of Hospitable, we can run we can actually run an ID verification check for any guest on top of the Airbnb booking or Vrbo, and we make them take a picture of the front and back of their ID card. We make sure that that matches up with the payment method. We take a look and make sure that they're not, let's say, in India somewhere, but they say their profile says they're in Kansas City or something. Like, we make sure there's an IP match, right? We're using AutoHost for that. You can use them outside of Hospitable as well if you're interested. So if I ever see that a guest has 0 reviews, they're new to the platform, and Airbnb gives you this information, Airbnb booking, and they tell you how long the person's been a guest or how long they've had a profile. I can see it in Hospitable right when the reservation request comes through. So I'd have no problem. I pay $8. I send the additional verification. I add to my house rules that they need to complete it, and we actually suspend all the messages until they complete that additional verification. If they don't complete the verification, then great. The dates become available, and I've just avoided a big headache at that point. So again, to recap, there's like informal, ask the right questions, present the information, and then if your spidey senses go up, have an option like AutoHost available in your tool belt to be able to send some additional verification. What you want is to really make sure that that person is who they say they are.
So for the auto check or auto host, do you trigger this automatically, or how does it message go
You
to?
can set it up automatically, or you can sort of take a look at the profile, right?
Mm,
Because Airbnb allows you to not accept instant book for those who don't have, let's say, at least 1 review, right? Or that their government issued ID hasn't been verified, right? So you can actually set that up, and that way an inquiry comes in instead of a booking. And if I see that, or if I see that they've been active less than a month, there's someone local, right? I see that, they live in Atlanta when my properties are in Atlanta and they're booking last minute. I'm like, hold on, I want to get some additional information from this
understood.
person, because that seems like they could be throwing a party.
Understood. Thank you. Interesting. Um, what are some common mistakes hosts make in their listing descriptions, and how can they optimize them to attract more booking?
Well, listing description, I'm going to assume photos are listing description
Professional.
too. Okay. Like, photos are the number one issue. I mean, I probably see, we do, uh, you know, 150, 200 new customers a month, and we onboard all those individuals and we take a look at their profiles. When I see open calendars, it's almost always due to bad pictures. Pay the 150 to 175 bucks to get pictures produced, but people just come out and get pictures, and they tell their photographer or someone they meet to come do it. Even good real estate photographers suck at doing Airbnb pictures. They just do. You've got to stage it. You've got to make sure that the towels are on the bed. You've got to make sure that you've brought out all the placemats and show all the plates, that you can actually, if the listing says it's for 12 people, that you actually can seat 12 people, and that there's pots and pans, all those types. There's lots of tricks you're presenting the place, but you're also presenting the experience. The second thing that I always see as an issue is people just write so much dense content in paragraph format. You need to do bullets, you can put emojis in there, but you need to sell the things that are free with you can say, look, we've got free Wi-Fi, we've got Netflix, we've got HBO, your walking distance. Sell the experience. I think a lot of people talk about the property. They don't necessarily say, what are the things to do? What are the attractions to do? Right? How close is the thing walking? Here's what other guests have to. You can kind of see some of that stuff in the reviews. I think most people focus a little too much on the actual inside the house versus focusing on the description, selling the experience of coming to that area.
Interesting. Absolutely good point. I used to say you have comfortable bed, you have thermopedic mattress and so forth, but I never thought about giving outside the place, right? Like 2 minutes away from Torrey Pines hike, for example, and so forth, or Del Mar or Fairground and so forth. Understood.
Or go. I know for you, since you're in the San Diego, or
Yes.
on Saturdays and Sundays, I know in Little Italy in downtown San Diego, like the farmers market that's there. Like, if you're there in that area and you don't go, it's like worth the trip alone. So you got to sell those unique local experiences, the best coffee shops that are in the area, how close they are, all those kinds of things.
Understood. Got it. How can short and midterm rental hosts go beyond just providing a place to stay and actually build a memorable hospitality brand that foster loyalty?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, a couple simple tips that I think can be overlooked. A phone call. No host ever make phone calls anymore. Our team makes phone calls, even if the person doesn't pick up, right? Um,
You mean
People
phone
remember
call to the guest?
phone call to the guest, phone call to the guest. Like there's so much automation these days, right? Even inside a Hospitable, we automate communication, but like if your host calls you after you've checked in an hour or two after and just says, "Hey, want to make sure everything's good to go. Need any local recommendations?" Right? You can't assume that every guest is really savvy on an app either,
Mhm, mhm,
right?
mhm.
You can't assume that. So getting a phone call, it can make a big difference. Like we just mentioned, really ask them a question like, what are you guys doing in the area? Do you have any open availability? I can make a couple suggestions, whether it's through the app or through the phone, right, as well. And especially for mid and long term, you need to let them know what the mid and long term amenities are in the area, right? If there are any like recurring festivals, where the best grocery store is, like all those types of things that you would need to know if you were a renter there. You need to make sure they have those things down. And I'm telling you, a phone, even when I've had bad experiences, and I mean bad experience, like I as a host, the air condition went out or my cleaner
Mhm.
didn't set the right towels out. When I've had an issue and I pick up the phone, that guest is way less likely to leave a bad review because they're like, this person cares,
Yes.
right? And that's what a great, you have to remember, we're not in the real estate business. We're not even in,
Hospitality,
we're in the hospitality business here. So like,
experience.
if you go to a Hilton or a Marriott, what do they try to do? When you check in, you often get a phone call like right in the suite. They have tons of, data that shows that can be meaningful. I think people don't expect that from short-term rental hosts, amongst other things. That's one tip.
Beautiful. Amazing. It's all about experience and make it sometimes personable, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
if there is an issue, I'm in customer service for many years, and I had instances where I couldn't get to the customer on time or not at all. If I just give him a call and say, "Mr. Customer, I know you're on my list. I know you have a problem. However, something came up or I'm running late. Just want you to let you know, is it okay? XYZ." And most often, if not always, they are okay for you to come back later as long as you're being honest, transparent, and you communicate it on time. They're good to go. So I can relate how if you call the call guests and say, 1 hour after when they arrive, how you doing? If you need anything, I'm here. If God forbid something broke, you already built the relationship, right? They already trust you, like you, and you've been proactive.
The other kind of quick tip, I totally agree with that. The other quick and hot tip here is a lot of people, once the booking's confirmed, they dump this super long message about the property, about the area. Timing of the messages is really important. Let me give you an
Mm,
example. A lot of my listings are in walking distance to some really amazing coffee shops, and coffee is like the cheapest legal drug. So most people are looking for coffee in the morning, right? So what I do is 7 a.m. in the morning, and instead of having buried that message, I say, hey, look, the property is stocked with coffee, tea, decaf, everything you need. But if you want to go to a really great coffee shop, here's three, and here's two that are in walking distance, and here's why we like these. It's
mm.
the timing of the message, right? If we sent that and buried it 2 months ago when they did the reservation, they don't remember that. They didn't see it. So I advocate, I think a simple tip is take a look at your dense messages that you have going out, whether it's an Airbnb or Hospitable or anywhere. Think about breaking those out and matching them with the timing that makes sense of when that person might want to see that message. If you're going to make local trips and recommendations, right? If you buried it in the welcome message the day before, how about Saturday morning? Like when they're looking to do something, or Saturday afternoon, right? Those types of things. People are always looking, and people who are travel sometimes tend to be homebodies too. They sometimes just need a little push to sort of know where to go. And I think you can provide that experience, but the timing of the message is really important.
Absolutely. Recently, we went to Thailand with my wife, and when we book Airbnb, we ask the host, where can we go for great restaurants, for example, for Thai food, or where can we go for great
Yes.
massage, right? And like you saying, she gave us at the beginning when we just made the reservation, but when we arrived 3 months later, we totally forgot about that. So the timing is very important. Okay, we are making huge progress here. Thank you very much. 8 minutes left on my timer here. Is anything else you would like to cover about Hospitable, where people can learn more about Hospitable? Any special offer for our our group members here?
Yeah, definitely. Well, just again, Hospitable is what's considered a property management system. You
PMS.
yeah, your PMS. You connect your channels like Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com. We'll even help you create those listings if you don't have them from your Airbnb listing. You press a button, we create a direct booking website. That easy. You don't have to know about creating a website. Um, we update smart locks. We update the PIN codes. We even now just integrated with thermostats. So if you ever had a guest show up and they're like, it's too hot, it's too cold, or you just feel like you're paying way too much in energy costs, we'll adjust the thermostats up and down. Honestly, if that feature alone, I've been pushing for Hospitable when I was just a customer. So I'm super excited about this. So we automate all those things, the guest communication, all those types of things. We offer a free trial. Literally, I think we're one of the only games in town that still does that. We don't want you to, we don't even offer a multi-year contract until you've been a customer for 3 months, because we want to make sure you really love the product and you're not just like tied to us legally. So two-week free trial. You can connect your account, download the mobile app, see if it's a good fit. And then we offer 20% off for the first 3 months. And I'm pulling up that code now, which has somehow left my, yes. So we offer the free 2-week trial. Excuse me, it's 25% off for 3 months. And that's
Nice.
at hospitable.com/corporate midterm rentals.
And I'm gonna put.
Hospitable.com/corporate midterm rentals.
Thank you, Derek. I will put this in the chat right now. We don't have any comments or questions in the comment section. If people want to connect with you, where can they, what they can, where they can do that? What is the best way? And also, what do you like to do for fun, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, definitely. Well, for fun, I love hikes. All Trails is my number one weekend app. If anyone has it, it's basically a
Say
specific
it
app.
again. One trade.
All Trails,
Oh, all trail.
ALL
Uh-huh.
Trails. I've knocked off thousands of trails there. No matter where you go, there's always a great trail somewhere, and you can find it there. Um, Real estate's my passion too. So on the weekend, I always have some project. I'm going over meeting a contractor, so that is also a bit of my passion. And it's to get in touch. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search Derek Jones Hospitable. You'll see my face there, and our company is hospitable.com. So we also have a Facebook group for any customers who might hear this. If you haven't joined, we've got about for people who are looking to dig in a little bit more to the product itself.
To the product itself. Got it. Got it. And quick question: Are you planning, you meaning Hospitable, are you planning to come to Midterm Rental Summit here in San Diego in 2 months time frame?
I need to confirm with Miles, who's our marketing guy. I think he's committed to a lot of events, and I know that one has been discussed, but I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me.
Okay, got it. Anything else? We are done here. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for your valuable information. I learned tons, especially about the auto host that I never knew about the project, and Hospitable as well, how you guys integrate and how you used AI since 2016. Very interesting.
Well, I think the thing I like to leave people, and I have to eat my own dog food on this on my own business.
Mm,
I call it INS. Actually, this came from David Green, who's a former host at Bigger Pockets. On one of their podcasts, they always talk about just know what the INS is of your business, the immediate next step. We talked about a ton of things here. Some of them are, maybe not all of them are new, but you just haven't done it yet.
mhm.
Write the one thing down, whatever it is, because the single difference I see in hosts that take their business from 1 to 20 properties is they try to do too much at once. You want to do the immediate next thing. Try to prioritize that. But even if you're unsure about, if you've narrowed 20 things down to a top 5, who cares? Throw a dart at the dartboard, pick one of those things and just do it. Do one thing at a time, execute that, knock it off the list. Know what your immediate next step is. Get it done. Otherwise, you'll be paralyzed. You'll never get on multiple channels. You'll never request the email address. You'll never get your direct booking website. And all of a sudden, it's 6 months later, you haven't changed anything with your business. Find the one thing that you need to change today, put that down, get that done, and then go to the next thing.
Thank you. There's also a book called One Thing by Keller Williams that talks about exactly what you just said. I appreciate your time today. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you around in San